Hey everyone, Matt from Stronger Personal Training here. Today's post a little bit more practical, a little bit more applicable than some of our other more conceptual theory-based posts that we've made in the last few weeks. So today we're going through squats and different things you can do to improve your positioning using your feet as a reference point. So really common to see people squat. There's a really common trend in recent, say in the last 3-4 years on people trying to use their legs more in the squat, as such trying to sit down as opposed to sit back in the squat. I think it's a really good thing to do in your squat, but I think it gets misinterpreted or misapplied by a lot of lifters. So ideally what we're looking for is the ability for the athlete to squat down and come back up, right? With a relatively minimal torso forward lean, right? Instead, what tends to happen, especially with lifters who their glutes might not be strong enough, they might not know how to hip hinge properly, or simply they don't have good bracing mechanics or foot awareness, right, is they'll start to go down and then they'll tuck. And they end up with this sort of Quasimodo looking bottom of their squat, butt wink, whatever you want to call it, and then they'll come back up to the top. And so the first half of their squat generally looks okay, but they kind of break off, right? So we've talked about bracing mechanics a couple weeks ago, right? That's going to be a bit of an overarching theme. We're not going to talk too much about that, but just understand that when you're doing this at any point through the movement, you should be able to maintain a pretty good brace, okay? So quite often what we'll see with those lifters that go down and then they shift onto their heels and get stuck, and it looks like they can't track their knees forward properly, they can't keep their back straight, is they're losing their brace and their balance point changes as they go down, and so they have to compensate with a change in spinal position. So your body's not going to let you fall, or at least that's not the goal, so it's going to find ways to lift the weight and not fall flat on your face. Okay? So when you get that posterior shift, oftentimes what's happening is the lifter is failing to properly engage their abs, okay? And as a result, they overextend, they stay a little too vertical, their weight shifts back too much because their hips are going backwards, and now they have too much weight behind their center of mass. So they'll round their back in order to create a little bit of forward shift. Generally, they'll drop their chest, and that balances things out. So what do we do about this? Well, we get the lifter aware of their center of mass. So we'll go through this in a barbell in a second, but body weight's the first place because it gives you the biggest buffer, it gives you a lot of room to play around and explore different positions. So start just before that lifter is going to make the error. So if we know that at around halfway down in their squat is where they miss, come up about an inch, okay? You want the lifter to be able to feel like they can track their knees forward, so keeping their toes on the ground, without losing their heels. So the feet shouldn't move. It should feel like they can firmly press through the ground. So you're going to go down here, right? Make sure you can keep a good brace. And if you feel like you're maybe back here and you're stuck and your toes are floating, or maybe you're here and your heels are lifted, right? Adjust your body position to fix your foot weighting and make sure you can have an even position. So let's say we're talking about that lifter that rounds over a little too early in the squat, and their toes are lifting up. So they're going to go sort of down here, right? You'll see they're trying to fight to stay upright. They need to stop themselves from being on their heels, right? They need to shift their body weight forwards a little bit, right? Especially prevalent in those low bar squatters where the bar is actually going to sit on the shoulders, not up on the upper traps, okay? So I'm just not changing my depth. I'm just moving my body weight forward. And they're going to feel their quads start burning a lot if they're doing this properly. From there, you're going to go down a little bit more, down a little bit more, down a little bit more, and find that point where they start to shift their feet around again. You're going to see there's a point where they're going down, and then they'll do this, for example, right? And they're going to lift up their toes, right? Stop there. Shift the weight forward, and then keep going down. Come back up. Once you've mastered that control in your body weight squat, it's time to apply it to your barbell, right? So I'd recommend starting at about 25-30% of your max. Go light because you're going to spend probably 15-20 seconds in a squat here. I like to coach this as 3 separate pauses. You're going to pause at a half squat and check your position and adjust if you need to. You're going to pause at a 3/4 squat, do the same, and then you're going to pause at a full squat and do the same, and about 5 seconds on each pause. So it'll look something like this. Okay. So there I'm kind of adjusting, shifting forward a little because I tend to go back on my heels. Down a little bit more. And then down a little bit more. And back up to the top. right? Really efficient warm up, doing a couple sets at 25, 30% of your max or your working weight for the day is a really good way to grease the groove for your squats. You're gonna warm up your tissues, right? Get everything just sort of up to temperature, and you get a lot of really specific skill practice. So if you are trying to build your technique in your squats, this helps you do that without doing every exercise under the sun that's not a squat, but instead focusing on the thing you're actually trying to improve. That's all for this week. Thanks, and we'll see you next time. Last piece I wanted to mention is we've got a Facebook group called Starting Powerlifting. It's a group of everybody from people who are just starting out lifting up to people who've been lifting for 10 plus years. And it's a good community where you can post up questions you got about powerlifting or lifting in general. If you're looking for advice, form review for exercises you're trying to correct technique on, or other kind of issues you've got with your own lifting, feel free to join the group. I'll post a link in the description below as well as on my Instagram bio. And see you all next week. Thanks.